You have to walk the talk. You have to be authentic as a leader. If you're not doing it, they see that.
It is entirely universal. There's other people who are going through this.
For me, a great leader needs to be able to marry three things: vision, systems, and people.
Welcome to Leadership Moments if this is your first time, and if you are returning, thank you for your support.
This show is about leaders from all walks of life, leadership tips, and maybe even a little of what you wouldn't expect to help you in leadership.
We would appreciate it if you tell someone else about our podcast as we strive to support all leaders that want to just be better.
Let's get on with the show.
Today, I am with my fantastic co-host, Tracy Ann Palmer, and we want to talk about a topic that many of our clients, actually some colleagues, and even some good friends have been talking to us about.
Yes, absolutely, Stacey. You know, we're tackling a topic that every leader will encounter at some point in their life, whether it happens to you personally or to people you lead, the unexpected career transition.
Yeah, maybe it's a company restructuring, a market downturn, or even an executive shakeup. But maybe the company had a tough financial choices as well, and suddenly you or a colleague are out of a job. And unfortunately, we've had a lot of this come to us lately, so we felt it was really important to bring to the topic today for our episode.
Yeah, and it's interesting, I know, Stacey, you and I have been dealing with this, but I hear it all the time, right? So if you're a leader in transition yourself, we've got some clear strategies to help you take to your next step with confidence. And if you're still in your role, this episode is just as important because we're talking about how leaders can support their peers and teams through career shifts.
Right. And so let's start by acknowledging the reality. Losing a leadership role, any job really, and guiding others through a transition, it's emotionally, mentally tough. And simply said, it sucks. It just sucks losing a job.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And, when a leader is affected by a job transition, it's not just about finding another role. It's about navigating identity shifts, maintaining influence, and also you have to redefine your leadership impact outside of the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've spent, years in a senior leadership role, a sudden career transition that you were not asking for can make you ask a lot of questions. You might be saying, who am I without this title now? Right. And what do I do if my network sees me differently? My family sees me differently. You start questioning that. And how do I keep leading when I'm no longer at the head of the table?
Yeah, and that's just a normal part of the process. But the key here is how you choose to respond. Are you going to see this as a setback or as a strategic pivot?
That's it. Leaders don't just manage transitions for others, they also must lead themselves through these situations, through the uncertain times.
Yeah, exactly. So now let's talk about some strategy. If you find yourself unexpectedly between roles, the first thing you have to remember is do not panic. This is a moment that you have to be intentional now. And as a senior leader, you have a wealth of experience, but not every opportunity will be the right next step.
Yeah, that's right. And the whole don't panic, easier said than done. We understand that. But once you keep saying it, hopefully that will help people do it. But let's talk about a 3-step transition strategy when you're in there. And the first one is clarify your next move. So are you looking for another C-suite role? Would you consider an advisory board position? Or is executive consulting or fractional work an option for you either? Think about what that is the best thing for you. And then number 2, redefine your leadership brand. Your leadership, we all know, we talk about this all the time with networking and community and your brand. Your LinkedIn presence does matter. We know in the professional world. So highlight your leadership impact and not just your job history. And then taking that into your resume too. As you update your resume, reflect on the strategic contributions that you made. Don't just list things in order of what you've done. You want to be able to see things on top and what matters. And then the third step is leveraging your network with purpose. So instead of asking for a job, position yourself as a thought leader and a value adding resource. So, an example might be, I'm exploring strategic leadership roles in X industry. I'd love to hear your insights and trends on what you're seeing.
Yeah, and I think that third point is really key, Stacey, because when leaders are between jobs, the worst thing they can do is disappear from conversations. You have to stay visible, you have to keep contributing, and you've got to show up as the leader that you've always been. Now, let's just address a major concern. Job scams, fake job postings, because they do exist. Senior professionals are actually prime targets for fraudulent recruitment schemes. According to the FTC, job scammers steal $450 million from job seekers everywhere. So what are some of those red flags? When you get the exclusive job offers that require an upfront payment for access, recruiters with no real online presence. If they can't be found on LinkedIn, that's a problem. The advisory board opportunities that require financial investment upfront. The fake consulting opportunities promising high pay for minimal work. Those are all things that you need to really be aware of.
Yeah, it's so disheartening to hear that there's these scams for people that are really in times of need. And that's the key, is that they know that you're feeling desperate. And so you have to stay alert. And those red flags are great reminders. So I appreciate you sharing those, Tracy Ann. And there's a lot of fake job postings as well. It is amazing the difference if I think about how I used to look for a job years ago to how it is today. So if you have not been looking for a job in multiple years, I'm telling you, it is very different, and you have to be careful about these scams. And there might be things where a recruiter or someone that's hiring you, they say they're hiring you, where they say, we need your social security number so we can run a credit check, or we need your birth date for the application. Those are common signs. So other things that you want to think about is vague job descriptions. If the job listing for an executive role lacks details about responsibilities, company culture, or reporting structure, it may not be real. And then there's unrealistic salaries or perks. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And then lack of company presence. A quick search should reveal a legitimate company website and employee profiles on LinkedIn. Now, they're getting really good at taking really large companies too, and that are fake. So it might be a real company listed, but the posting is fake. So you have to be careful. And then there's some obvious ones like poor grammar and formatting. Real companies would not let that happen. And then urgent hiring with a no interview process. If they offer a role without a real interview, it's likely a scam.
Yeah. And, they are really getting more and more sophisticated. So take these tips as just some of the possibilities, but you got to be on the alert. And in addition, leaders are often approached with advisory roles or consulting gigs that look enticing, but they're actually a scam. So if it sounds too good to be true, research the company, ask for the reference, and never pay for access to an opportunity. Stay alert. And if it feels off, it probably is. So now let's flip this. If you are self-employed, how can you help another leader in transition?
Yeah, supporting peers during these career transitions, it's not just the right thing to do, it's the leadership thing to do. We are leaders of this world. We're not just leaders of our organization or our team at the time. And, some things that might include this is check in and offer some genuine support. I know they're struggling. Sometimes it might feel uncomfortable. So instead of saying something like, let me know if I can help, be a little more specific. Like, I'd love to connect with you with a colleague in your industry. Would that be helpful? Or, what about making strategic introductions? So if you have influence, use it. Introduce them to decision makers, recruiters, hiring managers, even just a conversation if that recruiter doesn't have a position right now or the hiring manager doesn't have a position right now can really uplift the person and help them boost their confidence during this time.
Yeah, and offering advisory short-term opportunities. So if you're in a hiring position, consider bringing them on for consulting work while they transition. Or the other thing is, I call this sort of normalizing the career transition and leadership conversations. The more we talk about it, the less shame there is around leaders stepping into new opportunities. So, one of the other things I just add is just being there as a support system, really helping them with their confidence, because that's the thing that normally gets impacted the most during this time, is really important. So, time for a lightning round, Stacey. I'm going to give you some real world leadership transition scenarios, and you respond as fast as you can with your advice. Scenario 1. A senior executive in your network just lost their role, but they're hesitant to share the news.
Reach out privately, and I'd say, I know this is a tough moment. If you want to talk through the next steps or brainstorm some strategy, I'm here.
Yeah, or just pick up the phone, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And that
just pick up the
connection means
phone.
everything.
Yeah, exactly. You've applied for 100 jobs and heard nothing back.
Stop mass applying. Personalize your applications and start networking. We talk about this all the time. If you haven't already started, start today. Even if you still have your job today and you're listening to this, start networking.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd say is, get a top 20 list of the companies you want to work for. Go and investigate who knows them, who in your network has connections there, right? Is there somebody you could reach out to? Those are really important things to do. So next one, your company just had layoffs and your remaining team is feeling anxious.
Oh, you got to be transparent, right? You have to acknowledge the uncertainty, provide reassurance where you can, and remind them how valuable they are to the company's future. And you can't just say that once. You got to keep doing it.
No. And, recognize that, hey, make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date, right? Make sure your resume is up to date, because I always say, even if you are kept at the company, if you are volatile or you're scared that something's going to happen, weigh up your options. So you make the decision on what's going to happen to you versus somebody else making that decision on what's going to happen to you, right?
Yeah. And real quick, I want to go back to your one point that you said, hey, make the list of the 20 companies. That's something that a lot of people don't realize when they've been in a role for a long time or at a company for a long time. You now have that experience that you can be a little choosy, and you might not feel that way because this was an unexpected transition. But trust me, you have great experience, and start with what you feel you want to be. What environment do you want to work in? What company do you want to work for? So I love that list of 20 companies that you said.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I think we just need to recognize that leadership transitions are part of the journey. I mean, if we look at some of the tenor of leaders today, it can be 2 to 3 years, right? That's not the way it used to be. So the key is to be proactive, strategic. You got to be intentional. And whether you're in transition yourself or supporting someone who is, you got to be there for them, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, if you found this helpful, share this episode with a colleague who might need it. And if you're in transition, remember, this is just one chapter of your entire story. Stay strong, stay connected, and keep leading with intent.
So until the next time, this is leadershipmomentspodcast.com, and we are so happy to have you with us on the show. If you enjoyed the show, please go to leadershipmomentspodcast.com to subscribe to the podcast or on your favorite player, as well as follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn.
You can also send us a message on what you like and don't like, or what guest you want us to have on the show.
So until next time,
this is Stacey Castor, and what doesn't challenge you won't change you.
And I'm Tracy Ann Palmer. Be the change you wish to see in the world.